Hi everyone, Trina Phoenix here, and this is 2.9 of the Return of the Divine Sophia and the Healing the Earth through the Lost Wisdom Teachings of Jesus, Isis, and Mary Magdalene. So we were just talking about the differences between ceremony and ritual being more formal, and it's done the exact same way, and it's passed down for generation through generation. And ceremony is the intentions or the song or the prayer or the inspiration that's within the ritual. So those are the ceremonial parts of rituals. So as she was explaining, you can have a ritual by invoking the four corners. But then the ceremony part is the part of it that you bring to it. The part that's your spirit is guiding you to bring to the ceremony and the ritual. So I thought that was pretty cool, and that was a good explanation of the differences between ritual and ceremony. And we have so many rituals that we do every single day. How we get up, brush our teeth, make our coffee, get off to work. You know, all these things, they're rituals. Our holidays, rituals. Going to school, ritual. All of these things, they become unconscious patterns, habits, rituals that we do every single day. And these rituals become the basis of your reality. And your reality becomes the foundation of your personal reality. And that personal reality is what forms the personality. So it's a process of layering belief systems, rituals, and patterns is how you've become what you are. So they're very important, and they're foundations. Most of them now we don't remember because we took most of them in before we were age 7. So with that, we have a lot of things that we need to unlock, unravel, and rewrite, because the consciousness is based upon a frequency, and that frequency is based upon how much can you perceive of the world around you. Are you stuck in the box, or are you circling the square? Are you getting outside of the box? And by getting outside of the box, again, look at the opposite. It means you must go within. So to get outside, you actually have to go inside. Everything is flipped. So we were getting ready to go into the directions of time. And what is time? And time is directly attached to our consciousness, because time is how we measure events. So without time, we wouldn't truly be able to have a conscious perspective, because the time kind of holds it together as a series of images and certain points, and that is how time is created. So they're intertwined very intimately, time and the observer. So the observer and time are kind of locked in, so we can have the function of the awareness, and the awareness of the I am, the presence. The presence is based upon those patterns and images and points of time that we measure throughout our lives. So when we talk about time, let's talk about the high holy days of the year. These are called the directions of time. Several of the women at Shasta's home pulled out their notebooks. No, Shasta put up her hand. Just listen, so you can learn to take in this information on another level. Reluctantly, they put down their pads and pencils. 8 windows of time and space correspond to the 4 seasons of the year. So you are already familiar with them. Relief spread across their faces, and mine. The spring and autumn equinoxes, from the horizontal arms of the great annual cross, while the summer and the winter solstice are the vertical axis of the cross. They mark the longest and the shortest days of the year. These 4 powerful holidays make up the cardinal cross of time. This is the time each year when the veils between this world and the others grow thin. In between these 4 great doorways are 4 other high holy days, and these are set exactly 6 weeks apart. Meg cleared her throat. Excuse me, Shasta. I don't want to sound dumb, but what are the solstices and the equinoxes exactly? I mean, I've heard of them, but what are they? Shasta raised her hands, forming 2 globes. As the earth moves around the sun each year, there are 2 points when the tilt of our planet's hemispheres are either the closest to or the furthest from the sun. These 2 dates mark the solstice positions, the points of winter and summer. The solstices are the shortest and the longest days of the year, while the equinoxes are the 2 days while the day and the night are equal in length. In the northern hemisphere, the summer solstice falls on June 21st, when the sun is up for the longest time. 6 months later, we have the shortest day of the year, which is the winter solstice on December 21st. Below the equator in the South America or Australia, these dates will be reversed. And the equinoxes, Susan asked, throwing back her long red sexy hair. The word equinox means equidistant. The equinoxes occur every fall and spring when the lengths of the day and the night are equal. That is March 23rd and September 23rd, when the scales are perfectly balanced. In fact, the fall equinox begins with Libra, whose symbol is the balanced scales. After the spring equinox, the days become longer, and after the fall equinox, we pass into winter. This is the time of the winter crone, when we go into the cave to hibernate. This all made perfect sense to me, but it seemed strange that we no longer honored these important holy days, especially when they had nothing to do with religious belief systems, but were grounded in astronomy and the seasons. How did we fall so out of step with these rhythms? As usual, Shasta seemed to be reading my mind. In the ancient world, these 8 holy days were times of great celebration. They signaled a time when the community would sow their seeds for planting, harvest their crops, or mend their nets. Like the 8 lunar sections of the moon, these 8 stations of the sun mark the changing seasons of the year. Meg cleared her throat. What are the 8 stations of the moon? Shasta smiled. Every month, the moon waxes and wanes. Interaction affects the moods of the people and the animals, the plants and the minerals. The 8 stations start with the dark of the moon, or as the time of gestation and planting. Then the moon becomes a crescent moon, a quarter moon, and then a waxing or gibbous moon, before becoming the full moon for 3 days of every month. This is the time when the electromagnetic energies of the moon pull the minerals up into plants So this is the best time to harvest your crops. Perhaps the ancient people knew something that we had forgotten. But Shasta went on. After the full moon, the light begins to wane, creating the waning, or the dismantling moon, the last quarter moon, and finally the balsamic moon, before it returns to its station beside the sun, making it invisible to us on earth, thus called the dark of the moon, where it remains for 3 full days before beginning its cycle all over again. I had never really thought about this, although clearly I had watched the moon all my life and marveled at its beauty and its cycles. So during the new moon, I realized the sun and the moon were on one side of the earth together, and during the full moon, the moon was exactly on the opposite side, creating a powerful yin-yang balance for the earth. This is why the full moon was so potent, and it was all starting to make sense. The marriage of the polarities. This, let me see, okay. This is the chart that she shows for the moon phases. And I'll hold this up so you guys can get a look at it. Then down below, she gives an explanation of what these phases are. And we'll read that now. So it says, the dark or the new moon. This is time to plant, intuit, open, truth, surrender, release. It's the core. The crescent moon, stepping out, mobilize, hope, reach, begin, Artemis. First quarter, activate, build, risk, plunge in, promise, commit, Diana. Gibbous moon, clarify, persevere, ask, design, progress, reach, Vesta. Full moon, shine, play, dance, dream, rise, passion, love, celebrate, Aphrodite. The disminiating moon, gather, create, express, understand, wander, messenger, Kuan Yin. Last quarter, listening within, time crossing inward, reoriented, Hecate. Balsamic moon, let go, fate, meditate, memories, wisdom, ebb, descent, Persephone. Okay. Shasta continued. The moon goes through this cycle 13 times every year, and thus the number 13 was always linked to the moon. The menstrual cycles of women and the goddess. She looked around the circle. Similarly, the sun goes through 8 stations, the 8 stations of the year, charting the same essential seasons. Winter roots go into the ground, since the world lies asleep under a blanket of snow. At the Candelamas of February 2nd, we are still in darkness, but we are moving towards the return of the light. 6 weeks later, at the spring equinox, we feel the stirrings of new life in the spring. We begin to implement the plans that we have nurtured all winter long. On May 1st, some 6 weeks later, flowers push up into the light. Animals foal their young, and everything answers the call of the life-giving sun. Then, June 21st, we have the summer solstice. The summer is when the plants come into full harvest. Bricks get made, homes get built, and our dreams can flourish. Then on August 1st, we celebrate the bounty of the Earth Mother, who has given us our fruits and flowers. In September, at the fall equinox, the days and nights become equal again. But from this point on, the days become shorter. Then at the Hollow Mass, or Halloween, we pass fully into the shorter days as we celebrate the Day of the Dead. Then finally, just before Christmas, on December 21st, the sun enters its darkest phase, and it sinks lowest in the southern skies. It stays there for 3 entire days, just like the dark of the moon before it begins to move upward, renewing its annual pilgrimage across the sky. This is the dark phase and is best for gestating ideas. Animals hibernate, trees go dormant, and people mend their nets and talk about their plans for the upcoming spring season. Shasta took a breath and looked at us, hoping that her words had painted a picture of the celestial dance that made its way across the heavens every year. This is the innate rhythm that all living things respond to, and that once we, as harmonious, attuned communities, celebrated together. This took a moment to sink in. Why didn't we still celebrate these milestones? I wondered. After all, we knew when the summer and the winter blew in, and we had the boots and the coats and the sundresses to prove it. But what had happened to our modern holidays? Donna raised her hand. What are those dates again? Shasta tickled them off on her fingertips. December 21st, February 2nd, March 23rd, May 1st, June 21st, August 1st, September 23rd, November 1st. And although the year was often thought to begin in the spring with the equinox, this is why we have Easter at that time. It is this season of renewal or resurrection. The dates seemed easy to remember. The cardinal cross points were all around the 21st, and the other holidays were on the 1st of the month, except for Bridget's Day on February 2nd. I reflected on our modern holidays to see if any of them had corresponded to these dates, but I could only think of Christmas, Easter, Groundhog Day around the 1st of February. Shasta went on. May Day falls on the 1st of May and was once called the Beltane, the festival of fertility. It marked the celebration of the light. August 1st was the long nast, from the Celtic word laugh, and the god of light, Laufensash, Laufensash. Sorry guys, my best attempt at that one. And that was November 1st. Okay, sorry, I lost my point. Okay, with the Celtic word laugh, the god of light. Today the church has turned it into Lammas. November 1st was Samhain, and the holiday was meant to honor the ancestors who had passed to the other side. It is now the festival of All Hallows Eve, and the Candelabras is the festival of Bridget, the goddess of the flame, the goddess of the returning light. This day marks the promise that the sun will return at the equinox, the next celestial marker. From many interests in archaeology and sacred temples, I knew that the celestial clock had been figured long ago into many of the alignments of the sacred sites around the world. By honoring this natural earth-sky rhythm, communities knew how to prepare for each season. Sites like Stonehenge had been created to predict certain astronomical events like full moons, eclipses, and meteor showers. These 8 high holy days are portals that allow us to step in between the worlds. This is why they are so important. These days in spiritual ceremonies. It is a time when the alignments between the earth and the sun allows the veils between the worlds to grow very thin. And this gives us the power to more easily connect to the other dimensions. Her words sent a shiver through me. I imagined that these points opened up energetic alignments within the cosmos, linked to the heavens. I suddenly realized that while some of these dates corresponded to our modern holidays, the Church had shifted our attention away from the actual days of alignment, essentially causing humanity to fall out of sync with the natural rhythms of the cosmos. I wondered if this had been deliberate, causing the world to fall out of sync with nature and ourselves. Later, I was to learn that when the Church Fathers superimposed Christianity over the seasonal wheel, they had shifted the true dates backwards or forwards to misdirect the energies as a way of keeping us from making the spiritual connections for ourselves. Wow. Wow, that's totally true. Thus, December 25th became the substitute for the winter solstice of December 21st. Valentine's Day falls 2 weeks after the Candlemas, and Easter is usually a week or 2 from the spring equinox. I knew that the reason December 25th had been chosen as Jesus' birthday was because the sun had reached its lowest point in the sky. In the 3 days before, it had symbolically died. At the winter solstice, where it appeared to stand still for 3 full days, enacting the sacrificial death of the sun. This was linked to the story of the great solar lords descending into hell for 3 days before rising from the dead. This was the real reason Jesus, Horus, Osiris, Mithra, and other great solar avatars had their birthdays placed on December 25th. As messengers of light, they were identified with the return of the celestial sun in this annual circuit of rebirth. And how exactly does Halloween fall into all this? Claudia asked, scratching her head. I had seen her dressed the year before as a pink pussycat with fishnet stockings and a tail. Shasta rubbed her chin. In the Christian calendar, Samhain, pronounced Samhain. Oh, Samhain. Wow. Samhain. Was converted to All Hallows Eve. So the Samhain was converted to All Hallows Eve. And it was November 1st. Became All Saints' Day. Finally, November 2nd was turned into All Souls' Day, honoring not only the Church Fathers, but the ancestors of the common people. This holiday was originally the Day of the Dead, that honored our ancestors with prayer. It is a powerful time to communicate with the loved ones on the other side, but few people use it this way anymore. Some believe that it was on this date that the Great Flood took down Atlantis some 11,500 years ago. In the goddess tradition, it is this time when the crone comes into her power. She is pictured as an old woman, veiled in secrets. the sage of life and death and all the cycles. In her maiden form, she is Bridget, the bride, but in winter she becomes the crone. They call her Caliche, the Celtic lands, and she foretells the future to all who would listen. Later I was to learn that Caliche is the Irish name for the white ghostly lady from the other side, who acts as an intermediary between the world of the humans and the spirits. She is also called Grandmother of Time, and is still honored in many places where the Day of the Dead is celebrated. In Mexico, for example, people dress up in colorful costumes and share food with their departed loved ones. The mood there is festive, not solemn. It was in England that the ritual of begging for soul cakes first originated, eventually evolving into our modern-day custom of trick-or-treating. There aren't holy days in August anymore, are there? Meg complained. I could see that all of us were trying to work out how our existing holidays fit within the old calendar. At least I've never heard of any, she shrugged. Shasta made a face. The church took great pains to abolish as many festivals of the earth-based wisdom as they could, particularly those that honored the goddess. While the solstice was often assigned to the lords of light, the midsummer harvest was dedicated to the great mother Isis, Demeter, Diana, and Ceres, all goddesses who protected the forests, the fields, the crops, and the animals. August 15 is Isis's birthday in Egypt, but it was later turned into the day of Ascension for Mary, the Mother. Here in America, it is celebrated as the Green Corn Festival by the Native Americans, who create effigies of the Corn Maiden. Wow, the church leaders had co-opted whatever they could, I thought. They had completely eliminated the celebrations of the Midsummer's Eve, dedicated to the goddess, that had been captured so brilliantly in Shakespeare's Midsummer's Night Dream. This celebration had been connected with grapes, wine, fertility, sexual celebrations, and song. This was the same kind of joyful celebrations as the ones I had discovered in Canaan and Mesopotamia that were dedicated to Asheroth and Tammuz. No wonder the church had gotten rid of these holidays, like Beltane, which celebrated the fertility of the people in the land. It had been way too much fun. Besides, the leaders of the totally patriarchal sect of Yahweh had so hated the mother-son or husband-wife partnership combination that they had just deleted it from our minds. Later, I was to discover that this architectural goddess festival had originally been dedicated to Isis because she was the one who had rescued the grains of wheat along the Nile after the Great Flood. She and Osiris had brought these seeds of wheat and barley to the people, and thus preserved them for future generations. This is also why Isis was known in Greece and Rome as Demeter and Ceres, respectively, the goddess of cereal and grain. Shasta went on, Lammas, or August 1st, was intended to thank the Mother Earth for her bounty and to acknowledge her as our life giver. But the church changed the name to the Feast of the Blessed Virgin and moved the date to August 4th, 3 days past the window of alignment. These festivals have passed into oblivion. I wondered if the men who had made these decisions were so ill-informed that they just didn't know the real dates, or if this misdirection had been deliberate. I suspected the latter. But short-circuiting our connection to the natural rhythms of the earth, by short-circuiting our connections to the natural rhythms of the earth, we fall out of step with the harmonies of the universe. We become confused and dispowered. Sarah raised her hand. What about Easter? Why do we have Easter eggs and bunny rabbits? What does this have to do with Jesus? The whole thing seems kind of screwed up. We laughed, knowing just what she meant. All right, let's talk about Easter, Shasta said with a gleam in her eye. Why do we have Easter eggs at Easter? We all looked bewildered. Of course, the question had occurred to us before, but I had no idea. Emerald spoke up. Because of Eostara, the German goddess of rebirth, who supposedly invented nature itself. Shasta looked pleased. Yes, Eostara, like Gaia, represents not only the planet Earth, but also the great cosmic eggs. Creation itself reveals the same shape, from the oval of the galaxy to the solar system. They all represent the eggs of the mother. What a thought! How would the ancients have known that the modern-day astronomers, who were only now just discovering, how could they have known about the shape of the orbital planes, planets, or galaxies? Perhaps they saw them shamanically. Certainly, the egg was a universal shape that produced life. In Vedic culture, the divine couple, Vishnu and Lakshmi, were said to reside in a cosmic egg during a long night of the world. And in Egypt, Ptah, the architect of humanity, was shown spinning this cosmic egg on a potter's wheel. I realized then that there were a lot of hidden scientific and religious principles woven into these symbols. Did you know that the month of May was named for the goddess Maya? Emerald interjected. And that June was named for Juno, Zeus's wife? We all looked up at her in surprise. Why wasn't this stuff taught in school? Suddenly, the resonance between the goddess and our calendars made perfect sense. She has a picture that Trisha drew, the Harvest Maidens month, where August and September, and she became immortalized as the constellation Virgo, illustrated by Tricia McCannon. The Harvest Maidens months are August and September, and this is the picture she drew of the goddess. Virgo. Figure 11:6, the Egyptian creator god Enki, or Ptah, is showing spinning the cosmic egg of creation on the potter's wheel of life. Illustration by Tricia McCannon again. Here it is. Shasta looked pleased. Yes, Maya was the Roman goddess who gave birth to Hermes. Like green Terra in India, Maya was the goddess of the earth. Maya's color is green for healing and fertility. So May Day is her festival. Maya is the goddess who blessed all sacred unions, human and animal alike. This is why May is the most popular month for weddings. Emerald was just getting warmed up. In Assyria, May was the time when ribbons were fastened on trees and gifts were left under them for the poor. Wow, I thought, like Christmas. Maybe this is where we had gotten the custom of putting up Christmas trees and representing the tree of life. Emerald went on. Even the two colored ribbons of the maypole dance mimicked the birds and the bees weaving among the flowers, intersecting in it. This is astonishing. I could see that the two ribbons used on the maypole wove together the male and the female strands. In this great undulating dance, just like our own DNA, or the spiritual currents of the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems that move up and down our spine during spiritual activations. All of these customs were really about enlightenment, weren't they? And they were all based upon the ancient religions of the goddess. That's amazing. Didn't they have a ritual king and queen day on Didn't they have a ritual king and queen day on May Day? Sharon asked. Shasta nodded. Yes, just like the king and the queen of the homecoming court at the prom each spring, they represented the Divine Mother and her male consort or her king. They were only married for a day to symbolically stimulate the earth's fertility. Any children conceived from that union were thought to have very special destinies. Holy smokes. I had no idea that thousands of annual high school proms had anything to do with the ancient custom of the May Day celebration. Yeah, said Emerald. The word prom is short for the word promulgate or stroll. The stroll taken by the king and the queen before all of their subjects. Amazing, I thought. Alex raised her hand. Didn't the Romans make a big bonfire in the spring and jump over it for fertility? Shasta nodded. Yes. This was the Celtic celebration of the Bona Day, where they danced all night long, jumping over the bonfires at dawn for good luck. The Irish celebrated the festival of Sheila na gig at that time. I've never heard of her, Claudia mumbled. She wasn't alone. Ooh, Emerald gushed. You don't know about Sheila na gig? Scandalous. What do you mean? I asked uncomfortably. Well, Emerald said, rubbing her hands together as if she were about to impart some juicy gossip. Sheila na gig was the goddess whose private parts hung over the doorway for fertility like a portal. To touch her yoni when you went through the door was considered good luck, a sign of the home's fertility. What? Impossible, I thought. This was duly scandalous. Duly scandalous. You'd rub her yoni to go through the door? It's a stylized vulva, Sharon explained. I saw those carvings when I went to England last year. Wasn't she the Irish symbol for procreation? I thought the church wiped her out. Yeah, the Persians tried to. The Puritans tried to. I don't know what that word is. Emerald said, shrugging. They would rather deny women's sexuality or repress it altogether, so they decided to dedicate this month of May to the Virgin Mary instead. We all laughed at that. This was all quite eye-opening. The celebration of fertility had been co-opted by the Virgin Mary. What would the church do next? Shasta spoke. Since May was associated with many of the ancient goddesses who represent the fertility of the earth, the church viewed it with great disfavor. In Greece, this was when Persephone returned to Demeter, and the land became fertile once again. And this was when Aphrodite, the goddess of love, returned from the deep waters of her winter bath. And it was when Ishtar celebrated the rebirth of Tammuz in the ritual lovemaking. But in the 18th century, the month of May was now dedicated to Mary, the mother, once again consecrating it to the goddess of new life. Wow, I marveled. At least some aspect of the Divine Mother had been reclaimed in the world, despite her being displaced as the Lady of Plants and Animals and the Lady of Life and Rebirth. This is the picture that they show of the Sheila Nagig, and it represents the essence of creation and fertility, illustrated again by Tricia McCannon. And this is the statue that they would hang over the doors. Next, the coming of the goddess. All right, Shasta said, clapping her hands. Enough for today. I now want for each of you to find a place in the garden where you can be alone for the next hour. I want no talking. Call on the sacred energy of the mother. She may come through the buzzing of a bumblebee, or a budding of a flower, or the singing of a bird. She may come in the sacred sound of the cosmic river. She lives in all things, seen and unseen, but most of all, she lives inside of your heart. Hers is the yearning of your spirit to reunite with all living things. Feel her presence in nature and invite her in. Here on the eve of the new season of spring, celebrate your connection with nature. Lie on the grass, look up into the clouds, and find the garden within yourselves. Then, when you are ready, you may leave in silence. I will see you again at the spring equinox. All right. We will finish there, and we will pick up on chapter 12, which is the goddess and the descent into the underworld. Oh, that should be really good. I'll read you a small part of it. I am the single radiance by which all is aroused and within, and all which is vibrant. For the man who has found me, the door to all things stands open. I am the magnetic force of the universal presence and the ceaseless ripple of its smile. Felhard D. Chardlin, Hum to the Eternal Feminine. Okay, so we will pick up on that, the goddess and the descent into the underworld. That's going to be awesome. We're going into the subconscious. Get ready to dive, y'all. It should be fun. So I love you. Hope you guys are enjoying this. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you for being a part of my soul tribe. I think these connections that we are starting to remember and reconnect to will truly be the key to how we come into wholeness. Because balance can only happen when we find wholeness. And the wholeness that's within us is the embracing of the masculine and feminine powers that make us what we are. So I love you all. I'll see you on the next one. Have a great day or night, wherever you may be. And may soul and spirit be with you always. Bye.